Okay. Oh, thank you for recording. Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's great to be back with you again. Hello, Facebook, Zoom, all of you. I'm so thrilled to be here again. And yes, you guessed it. I'm from Alabama. It's great to be back. I hope things are starting to cool down for you. They are here, and I love this time of year. Autumn is here, which I know I'm so grateful for, because it's been very warm. This time of year I just love with the changing of the colors and football games, sweaters and holidays, and school is underway. I just love it when we all start getting together and having fun. Fall is such a wonderful season. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Our talk today is going to be very simple and straightforward, one giving us a new perspective for today's living, borrowing from an old one on the subject of love. As you and I all know, thousands of books have been written on love. Too many. Even with songs and art, there's just been more than anything I know of that has looked at love. But what I want to do tonight is I want to go back to some of the old spiritual masters who wrote on this subject. Their concepts and lifestyles were so different, coming from hundreds to thousands of years ago. I actually am amazed to find their writings just as relevant today as they were back then. What I think is so valuable is that we've got to review and apply these words of wisdom in our world now. Aside from technology and I guess the division of the family, I think we've got a lot more in common than we ever realized. As I explain in Bloom Revolution, our goal is to be committed to the transformation of ourselves by being loved. We know when we raise our consciousness, all will be affected, then creating a domino effect. As we progress, this beautiful life is ours in the twinkling of an eye. I also wonder what it will be like when we do make this universal shift. Just know this beautiful life is possible and on the way when we commit ourselves to being this energy of love. Bloom Revolution's recipe for love is committing to reaching your highest potential by being the gift of love, having a positive nature. Henry Drummond, a renowned 19th century Scottish evangelist, reminds us what love is according to the Bible. With all the change in the hectic way of life, it sometimes seems we've forgotten or never even learned the basics. To me, no matter when and where we are in life, this energy of love, which is God, is always available to us and through us. The only thing that changes is us. Let's review and get a fresh perspective of who we are and what we can be. In Henry Drummond's book, The Greatest Thing in the World, he says, and I quote, "Love is a supreme good and is only meaningful when it is lived." Close quote. I don't know about you, but there is nothing better than sharing yourself with the ones you love. There's no greater good because it's the highest energy. I think there are more definitions of love than there are dictionaries. Maybe if we all agree there are 9 components of love, like he references to, we could create a life worth giving, a life worth living, and certainly a life worth sharing by applying them. Let's look. When there's an absence of love, you can feel it, you can sense it, and if you really look, you can see it, its effects. The same goes when there is love. What do you consider would be the supreme good or your greatest desire? Some say faith is our greatest desire, but love is greater. Remember what Paul said on the subject of love thousands of years ago. In 1 Corinthians 13, he said, I quote, "The greatest of these is love," close quote. Today's science can calibrate and prove that that is true. Love is the highest power. That one fact created Bloom Revolution. Paul goes on to say in the scripture, and I quote, "If I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing." Close quote. Tulsa, our greatest potential can only be love. And how we do that, and I call it blooming, will be our greatest and most beautiful journey in our life. And I have a question. Has our way of life actually changed our ability to be who we really are, which is love? Erich Fromm, a German psychologist and author in the early 1900s, said, and I quote, it's so beautiful, "Love means to commit oneself without guarantee, to give oneself completely in the hope that our love will produce love in the loved person. Love is an act of faith, and whoever is of little faith is also of little love." You see, in reality, perfect love expects nothing and asks nothing. He can never be deceived or disappointed. It is only when love demands that it brings on pain. It seems we want a reward for our investment. Love isn't like that. Love is only love when you give with no expectations. Close quote. This seems to be the way most people have come to expect in our relationships. And it seems to get to that place when we are not aware of how love really is. Just think about it. But what if we chose or committed to believe and trust and accept and hope that whoever we love, we do so with no guarantee? This is the one thing we all must take into consideration. The one thing. You may be waiting a lifetime if you are demanding a 50-50 relationship. How do you keep tabs on love? Keeping records doesn't sound or feel very loving to me, does it? Here's a thought. What if we loved others knowing we will grow or bloom from the relationship? What if? We need to realize that others can and will give only what they're able to give, not what we think they should give. A selfless act of love can plant a future seed for someone that may never give you a response, such as a thank you. But it may change that person. That's love in bloom. It may, in my experience, that love reveals itself differently with each person. Their consciousness is uniquely different. We're all on a unique level of vibration. As you know, it is totally unrealistic to hope you will get the same return that you give someone. However, when you freely share yourself, and that's the higher vibration, you open up the greatest opportunity to create a beautiful moment, not only for others, but for yourself. For example, I don't know what feels better, when I give something or I receive it. Do you? It's always a win-win situation. Whether you're helping a child do their homework, making a meal for someone that needs your support, taking a dessert to a friend just because, or just take the trash can back to the neighbor's house when they're ill. It just feels good. Love's nature is to feel good because love is good. God is good. When we freely give of ourselves, just like a flower, it feels good. Love given and received can be pure bliss, as Terry Whitaker says. The sad part is that we're taught to internalize our feelings of love, and this becomes a recipe for disaster. No wonder we're clueless when we discover our feelings and our judgments have percolated from who knows where. We keep them harbored inside us with no plans to ever be heard. We all feel things differently than others. When you have the freedom, though, to feel and be heard without fear, you experience safety and peace. Love must be expressed, not impressed. Our creative self-expression of love is why we're here. And if you're unhappy, find the solutions to change what you're keeping inside you. So now let's look at what I call the recipe for love. Southern hospitality at its best, or what I call the 9 components of love, and how we can use them today. It could be the spectrum of love, whatever you want to say. It will never change because truth is truth. What worked thousands of years ago works today. So let's look, let's refresh, let's reboot. 1 Corinthians 13. Number 1, patience. Number 2, kindness. Number 3, humility. Number 4, generosity. Number 5, courtesy. Number 6, unselfishness. Number 7, good temper. Number 8, guilelessness. And number 9, sincerity. I want to go through every one of them and give you a kind of a personal view. When I think of patience, I naturally think of my late dad. He was without exception the greatest man I've ever known, but he was really loved in every area of his life. And I can say without question, I was blessed with this best example of patience to learn from. Patience is calm and always ready to do whatever is required without hurry. A meek person with a quiet spirit comes to my mind who radiates patience. Bearing the load without anyone's knowing in order to achieve the best results reflects patience. He was a true gentleman. Have you learned patience? Who do you know in your life that represented patience to you? Who did the divine send to you to teach you that, or the lack of it? Where can you now apply patience in your life? When I think of kindness, I instantly go to my late mother-in-law. She spent so much time doing things for everyone she knew. Her life was all about making people happy. Both my boys can tell you that too. In fact, the whole family can. Happiness is one of blooming, whether you are the flower or the flower is for you. Her life was giving to others, and she did it masterfully, whether it was to the mailman, the children, teenagers, her maid, the garbage man, her family. It didn't matter. I loved being with her until the day she transitioned. She was, as Robert Browning once said, I quote, "Love is the energy of life." That's who she was. Her life was one of unconditional love. She was my greatest example of kindness. And I want to say thank you, Spirit. Who was yours? Look who was really kind to you and how it made you feel, or the lack of it. How can you put kindness in your life for all you know? Who in your life needs kindness? When you pay it forward as it was done to you, who would that be? When I think of generosity, that's no question, then I immediately think of my late father-in-law. He was the greatest teacher of generosity I have ever experienced. I've never known a man like him, and I may never, ever know. I hope I could be like that. He never was envious of people, and he freely gave himself as fun and a lover of life. He was very wealthy in most people's terms, and he loved giving it away to the people he shared his life with, having just a generous spirit, full of fun. At Christmas time, the kids named him Grandpa Claus, and they kept it all during the year because that's his spirit. I learned generosity from him. Who in your life taught you how to be generous, or even the lack of it? It's a great place to look. There's gold finding these things. How can you be more generous with your heart, with your time, with your treasure, with your attitude, with your intelligence? Who would benefit from your generosity? They're there. When I think of courtesy, I immediately think of a minister that was my true bloom, Reverend Glenda. From day one, I was drawn to her calmness, her supportive expression, as well as her moral character. She is true courtesy. Her etiquette was love in action, according to what I think is what polite means. Her behavior was her art, and her way of life was love. Being inconsiderate, unsympathetic, and abrasive was never her nature. Her being my example of courtesy changed my life, and actually was a step and made me step into my ministry because of her. We're great friends, and I know who to call when I need guidance. I always count on her to be positive and kind. She is my best example of courtesy, and I know the world is a better place because of her life. Have you ever thought, who taught you love? Where did you learn to be courteous? Or are you courteous? It's a great place to look. When I think of unselfishness, I immediately go to my late mother. She was my greatest example of unselfishness. She gave of herself tirelessly without any thought of her own needs. That goes for her church, her family, and anybody in need. Life for her was about giving and love unselfishly and unconditionally, I might add. She often talked about being aware to not have the need, which she used to call, Lyssa, the need for things. She didn't think things ever would give you happiness or love. She believed the only thing worth having was an unselfish spirit that comes from giving. Again, there is no lasting happiness in having or getting, but only in giving. She was, without question, in my eyes, the reflection of what the scripture says, it is more blessed to give than to receive. That was her, a selfless person who was my greatest teacher, showing me how to give. Who in your life was your greatest teacher of being unselfish? How is their life a blessing to you? How can you do that for others? What opportunities will you take? The next component of love is a good temper. Well, I immediately knew that, and my dad gets 2 votes. The first one and now this one. He won that category. He was the greatest example I know when it comes to temper and being able to always keep his cool, never reacting. And I can say that with authority, never reacting. He never condemned me or reacted destructively. In fact, I often wondered what he was thinking because I never really knew until later. And then he would talk about it. He always waited until he had his thoughts collected before he reacted or had something to say. I've never heard him ever take any credit for anything. In fact, I always heard it from other people, and he acted like, oh, okay. It was incredible. He was so honest and humble. He never displayed a quick temper. He was never greedy of any sort. He was never drunken or had a touchy disposition. I never experienced any guilty or misery-producing power from him, and our home was one of calm and respect. I never knew fear except from me inventing it or with my expectations of myself. That was my beautiful life. Do you have a temper? Who taught you your temper if you do have one? And if you don't have one, who taught you that? If you do have a temper, be honest with yourself. What can you do to change? Because anger can and will be destructive to you and others. When I think of guilelessness, and that's such a weird word, simply because it's an old word. So let's think, what does that mean? In today's, it means genuine, honest, and real, like being authentic. That's what that means. That word was so easy for me. It completely mirrors my dear friend of 25 years or more, who knows, I quit counting, Leanne. She consistently was always honest and genuine. Her love for others is always as high as her expectations of them. She always believed in me and never would listen to any of my doubts and fears. I always believed her because she believed in herself. She was strong and loving, which is a rare find in life. She could recognize a lie and presence of bad energy in a second. She was a perfect example of godlessness. To see me through 12 years of ministry foundation, she was there every step of the way. Who do you know that's genuine and honest? How has their life taught you to do the same? Notice how that energy of love supported and guided you to making better choices. How can you help others choose a better life by being genuine and honest? The last and final component of love is sincerity. This may look like a person who looks for the truth without hurting others. They're a stand for being a steadfast, humble, and unbiased person of integrity. That was easy for me. That person in my life was my dear friend and minister. We went together through the whole school together, Reverend Jane. She is smart, fun, kind, humble, and never reveals others' faults or their flaws. If she does have she will give an opinion, but she always sees the positive side and reflects that in the new possibility for others every time. I know who to call when I need to hear the facts or see other possibilities that I am not seeing. She's sincere and to the point. I've been blessed from her life of love. I can tell you that. Who taught you sincerity? Or have you ever thought about it? Are you a sincere person? If not, how can you start practicing this loving energy in your life? So that's the 9 simple components of love. The truth is, we can only learn by example. The only way you can identify them is seeing them in other people. They're right there in front of your eyes, ready for you to see them. When I started writing this talk, it took a long time to recognize all the people in my life, and it was a great experience. I urge y'all to do that. Get the 9 components of love and look at all the people Spirit sent you to teach you those components. I guarantee those people believed in you, and they either did or they didn't. They were still teaching you. Love is not a one-person job. The question is, when and how do we fit these components of love in our life and our character? Life is our only opportunity to do this right now. Consider we are in a schoolroom. I call it Consciousness 101 to do that. Our objective is not to be negative, it's to be positive and how to learn love better. To answer this, we must realize that getting better at anything takes practice and surrounding yourself with people that will help you build your, what I call spiritual love muscles. When you have those, practice with anyone and everyone. Raise your consciousness. The game of life is a win-win for all who want to love. That's what Bloom Revolution is about. Now go out there and bloom and let your character be your message, because you are the only vessel for love. And so it is.